Also, the research done by famous psychologist Albert Mehrabian, it tells us the importance of body language in any kind of communication process, the importance of non-verbal skills. According to him, there are total three V's of communication. Three V's of communication, according to Mehrabian, are vocal, visual, and verbal. Well, the research which was done by Mehrabian, Mr. Albert Mehrabian, the research says the psychologist is trying to prove that there are three things, the three contents of communication, and each of these contents has their own importance and their own weightage in the communication process. The first is verbal, which means the words that we use while talking. The second is tone of the voice. And the third one is the visual, which means our body language, our facial expressions, our appearance, etc. Verbal, voice, and visual are known as the three V's. So, when we are talking to someone or when we speak to someone, we listen to their words, that is verbal, we listen to their tone of voice and watch their body language, that is visual. According to Mehrabian's research, when someone is trying to communicate with their feelings and their attitudes to us, we are influenced only 7% of the verbal part, 38% by the voice, and 55% by the visuals. So, the conclusion of his research tells us that the major impact of any kind of communication has is through the body movements, the facial expressions, the non-verbal signals. This research was conducted by understanding different people's opinion about how much weightage must be given or how much importance must be there of each of these aspects in communication, that is vocal, visual, and verbal. Different people, according to their own understanding, came up with different sort of priorities. Some said that the verbal is most important. Some mentioned that the vocal, the voice tone, the modulation, the pauses, that element is the most important. Then the visual and then the verbal. Some said that the visual was the most important, then the voice, that is the vocal, and lastly the verbal. And this was the exact order in which we have an impact and influence of communication. The most important element is actually the visual, which has 55% of weightage according to Mehrabian. 38% is the way we speak, the voice modulation, and 7% then the words, the actual verbal language that we use, that comes into the picture. Well, imagine someone tells you, I really like you, but their facial expression and body language are bad. It's not appropriate to the message that they are trying to convey, and their voice is somehow angry. Would you believe their words, the verbal words that they just said, or believe their voice tone and visual side? Well, the human psychology will always go for the body language first. We believe in the facial expressions, the non-verbal signals, and the voice tone more than the exact verbal words. The verbal words make sense only if they match the body language and the non-verbal signals. The message should be harmonious with what you're trying to say. It is true when they say that action speaks louder than words. What often happens in any relationship is that language itself becomes a mask and a means of clouding and confusing the relationship. It becomes like a barrier sometimes. If the spoken language is stripped away, actually emptied, and the only communication left is body language, then the truth will find its, some way of pulling through. Spoken language itself is a great obscurer sometimes. It is like a barrier sometimes. Well, meeting someone for the very first time in a personal or even professional life could an ideal example to describe the importance of body language in our life. First impression is the last impression is a true statement. We always tend to remember the way people greet us, present themselves, communicate before using the verbal language. It is true when people say that relationships are built on how people make us feel, and this is formulated with the kind of non-verbal communication you develop with the opposite person. Whether the person smiles or not, initiate or handshake or hesitate, shows excitement and pleasure in getting introduced for the first time, or merely pretending to fake a smile for formality. If they maintain an eye contact, indicate positive attitude, shows confident body posture, all these factors ultimately influence in forming an opinion about someone. Most of us feel comfortable and pleased if we are being greeted with someone with a positive approach, like a firm handshake, a smile, erect posture, pleasant facial expressions, etc. In contrast, people who don't show much interest or lack confidence have a smirk, that is a fake smile, or hesitant handshake, and sometimes an inappropriate body language, which naturally makes us feel uncomfortable. In this scenario, even we do not have a lot of excitement or pleasure in meeting up with this new person. Hence, when we are meeting someone for the first time, the body language plays the most important role. Well, there are different components when we talk about body language. Under that, we have facial expressions, that includes our eye contact, the position of our head, mouth, whether we are smiling or not, or different kind of expressions that we try to communicate using our lip movements, posture, as mentioned earlier, the way we stand, the way we sit, or the way we carry ourselves, that is the posture, gestures, those are our hand movements, and spatial relations. Let's not confuse this with special, that is SPACIAL. Special is different and spatial is different. Spatial means talks about the space that we maintain, the space that we have while communicating with a particular person, and there are different kind of space that we maintain while communicating with different kind of people, and we will be discussing all these components in detail very shortly. Let's first understand the different emotions first that we display through our non-verbal communication, after which we will be discussing the components in detail.